Meet Bruiser. 1,800 pounds of solid muscle. Hardly ever been ridden. #1 bucking bull of the year the last 2 years running. This bull is a champion. You know, I was really excited to meet Dillon and HD of D&H Cattle Company just to see how they raise these amazing bulls. They've had the #1 bucking bull of the year in the last 3 years running, Bruiser and Long John. I thought it was great to see how they run their operation and raise world champions. Hi, I'm Steve Boaldin and I'm a cowboy artist. Today we're going to D&H Cattle Company in Ardmore, Oklahoma. You know, there's a story behind every one of my paintings. This program is about those stories and my search to find them. I travel to ranches across the country to see cowboys in action and to gather authentic material for my paintings. Along the way, I have the rare privilege of meeting ranchers and their families who pass along their passions in the cowboy way of life. So join me as I capture these real cowboys, their horses, and their cattle on canvas. Welcome to Art of a Cowboy. We got up real early that morning and headed towards Ardmore. It was really neat to meet Dillon Page and HD Page to find out how these guys raise such amazing bulls and see their whole operation. I was used to looking at it at a different angle from a bull rider's perspective, but it was really neat to see it from now what it takes to raise a good bull for a bull rider to ride. Hey HD.
Hey Steve.
How are you doing today?
Great.
Gosh, thanks for having us here today.
You bet, my pleasure.
Well, I've been looking forward to coming out here and seeing Bruiser and how you do all your operation here.
You bet, I'm glad to have you. You want to go have a look at him?
You bet, thank you.
I got you a horse caught. Well.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it'll be kind of a fun day today because we get to meet some bucking bulls today down here at D&H Cattle Company. And so this will be a really different one. So I'm pretty excited about that.
We've been here, actually I've been here my whole life. I've moved 2.5 miles since I was born. I guess I'm the owner of D&H Cattle, and Land Company Incorporated is actually the proper name, but D&H Cattle is what everybody knows us as. We farmed, we raised beef cattle. I rode bulls, so I decided I'd get me a few bulls when I did that. Well, I bought a few and we had a few. Got me a family, so I decided that I had to kind of try to make a living. So I got rid of my bulls, and my oldest son, HD, he decided him and a friend, they needed to ride bulls when he was about 12 years old, and I took him, put him on a few bulls. Well, the next thing you know, I'm buying bulls for him to ride. Next thing you know, we're raising bulls. So here we are today. We've been doing this, like I say, for 30-something years. It's turned into a pretty nice business. We've been very fortunate. We've been blessed to have some really nice bulls.
Well, we're here with HD again. And he's got Bruiser out here for us today to look at. So what are you gonna do with Bruiser? Just gonna kind of let him run out here?
It's kind of a little routine. I let him out here once a day, just let him play around. He goes around there and paws around the dirt and has him a little play. Scratches on every post from here to there.
It looks like he enjoys it.
Yeah, he does.
That's normal.
This is our exercise routine. He goes out there and paws around the dirt, and that's his exercise for the day.
Oh, yeah. Well, he just got back from out of town yesterday, didn't he? So he probably feels good to be home for a day or two.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. I don't think it matters to him. I think he just soon he's kind of a rock star. He just soon be on the road, you know.
Yeah, that's what I hear. He likes getting on the trailer and going.
Yeah.
Performing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's willing to work, that's for sure.
When we talk about Bruiser, he's one of those bulls that I think's been special from the beginning. As a 2-year-old, me and Gerald Buck was sitting watching the finals. And Bruiser Buck, of course, he didn't win, but he was up in there. And I told Gerald, I said, one thing's for sure. I said, we won't win today, but I said, when this bull gets a rider on him, I said, we got a winner. And we laughed about it and went on, you know. Well, sure enough, he was second in the Classic when he was a 3-year-old. He won the Classic as a 4 and was runner-up Bull of the Year that same year. The next year, he was Bull of the Year. The following year, Bull of the Year again. He's special, he's a gentle bull, you can pet him, but when you put him in the arena, he steps up and he's special. He will be the only one that has the personality and bucks that well too.
A bucking bull's career depends on a number of things. Themselves, first off. To perform at a high level, you have to put out some effort. No matter how gifted you are athletically, you still got to put out the same effort or more to be great. Take Bruiser, for example. He'll be bucking when he's 14 years old if a guy'd still put him on the truck and let him go. That's the way he's always been since he was a 3-year-old. There was a lot of times when he was a 3-year-old, he didn't get beat. And I don't think in his 4-year-old year he got beat, which is unheard of. And I didn't even breed him then, even though I really wanted him on the cows, but he was winning every week. And I was like, shoot, there's another event next week, one after that. And so I just took him every time I left. I was like, when you back up with the trailer, he starts hollering. He's back there hollering, hey, you know, don't forget about me. And you open that gate and he'll throw his head up and just trot up there to the trailer and get on. He's a character, for sure. We're pretty optimistic about his offspring so far. So I'm pretty excited about that.
You were telling me that this is Bruiser's first calf because Bruiser was on the road for a lot of competitions, so you didn't have a chance to breed him because he was real active and really...
Yes, sir. At that time, he won the NBBA championship when he was a 3-year-old, and then he was AVBI champion when he was a 3-year-old, and the competitions are kept up with by points, and in order to accumulate points and dollars, you have to go. You know, you have to go weekly, and he was bringing home 10, 15,000 a weekend, you know, so I didn't think I could afford to turn him loose on the cows. And now after I've bucked the calves, it would have made me more money to have him on the cows, but you know, but anyway, that's
hindsight.
We're still good. He's 7 now, and I might retire him after this year. I don't know. And if he wins it again this year, he might become a herd sire, you know.
We even got to go up close and pet him just to see how gentle he was. You guys actually told us, you know, the story about how he's just a big puppy dog when you're on the ground and he's just relaxed and settled down. But when he gets in the chute, he's all business, and that's what he's known for. Bruiser, not only a champion, but a real sweetheart.
Yeah, he kind of started getting like this when he was about halfway through his 3-year-old year, and you spend a lot of time with him on the road when we were going to an event every weekend. When that truck started, he knew he was going with it. He's pretty much done that from the time he was coming 3 until present, you know.
Really?
So.
Did you tell us kind of how you feed these bulls and how you put together a plan that you felt like makes your bulls grow right and grow timing?
Right. Well, we kind of had to learn the hard way, but back at one time, we didn't start these bulls until they were 3 years old, or just coming 3. And all we ever done was just roll the feed to them the whole time. We'd have these big, stout, huge dragons that, you know, they were like fire-breathing dragons, big 3-year-olds with big horns. And we had some trouble keeping them sound. When we get them to buck, they just couldn't stay together. And at the time, I thought they needed to have that little bit of craziness and that little wow factor type deal. But I didn't realize at the time that you can have all that and still have them in good shape and handle them, teach them some manners and still get along good. But the feed is a big part of that. Now we've figured out that we can limit their feed when they're young and just kind of let them grow at a more natural rate, let their bone density grow with their bones. Instead of like we were doing before, we were getting them huge. They look like mature bulls when they're coming 3 years old, but you can only make those bones grow so fast, I guess. And it's something you never think about. But after you break a leg or a back on a potentially a superstar bucking bull, you get 5 or 6 of them stacked up there that might be worth 50 to 100,000 a piece. Yeah. It makes you really start paying attention to what you're doing.
I thought it was really awesome to meet Bruiser because he is a rock star among bulls. So I could almost envision this even before I saw him, that I knew I wanted to do this pose of him. I've always kind of had an affinity towards colored pencils too, and I haven't done them in quite a while. But I decided I would try the first one in colored pencil. And what I do is I start out with a colored pencil base. I'll push that as far as I can. And then I'll come in with oil washes where I can't get the smoothness like I like. One of the things about Bruiser was he's very hard to paint. He had so many colors in his hair that it was really difficult. And when you're going from a digital image, which we had, it was really hard to achieve that. When I'm working with colored pencils, you kind of have to layer stuff. But then if that doesn't quite work, then I glaze in some oils. And you have to wait for each layer to dry before you put it in. You see a lot of dark blacks down in here. On his face, kind of an ochre color and browns. And then he had these crevices where the hair would be wrinkles in his skin and stuff. So this painting isn't quite finished yet because I'm never satisfied all the time with it. I feel like the vision I have of this painting is basically there. And that's just the gist of it. So I will probably tweak it a little bit more, but that's what's really hard to paint about a multicolored bull like this. But I really enjoyed the process of this one. It was good to get back to my colored pencils again for a change. I've strictly kind of stayed with oils for the last couple of years. It was a challenge to me and it was something that I envisioned. I just thought I need to do him in a vignette situation here. So I just think that capturing the bull's horns and the ears and the hair, every little aspect of this was just so fun but challenging at the same time. We're getting ready to buck these bulls right now. Let's get started.
You just kind of get them trained to kick and turn, and the process is when they do kick and turn and do things that you are asking them to do, you release the box. So this is
You have a remote control.
right.
Yeah.
See that? And this pulls up, this gets tied up on the bull, so, and when you hit this remote, it comes off, so.
And it sounds like you release this about 4 seconds in, if they're doing a good job.
Well, that's regulation, is that's how long they buck at a competition. Every bull bucks for 4 seconds with a dummy. Some of these calves just need a little dry work. Some of them need buck, some of them, they're all different levels in their training, I guess you could say. In his mind, he thinks when that dummy's on him, it's go time. And he gets so nervous and so anticipating that gate, before it can get open, sometimes he goes to bucking in the chute. So what we did there was just put the dummy on him, take it off. So hopefully, if we do that enough times, he'll quit anticipating the gate quite so much, you know. You need that explosive jump, but it needs to be after the gate's open and clean, then you want the jump to come. This calf has the tools to be as good as any of them. He just hasn't put together whenever you pay an entry fee yet. That's the most important time for them to put it together. It's good. And when this calf wants to turn left, he wants to do it in a hurry, and you can see where he's standing. If he turns, his front end's gonna land right there. So we almost need him scooted up just a tick and that way just a little bit. And then he's got a better shot of missing. He's down in the front end there, but that's all right for this deal. Go ahead. You know, he fought through it and he bucked still, but then he would have kept himself in the average deal somewhere, but he's not going to be in the top 10 at an event.
I would have loved to have ridden that bull. He told me I've got to go home and watch Joe Dirt. He named a lot of his bulls after that. There's some names on there. He's bringing it right back to you.
But at some point, you know, a lot of times you'll take that same calf 8 or 10 times before he figures it out. And a lot of times once they figure it out, those kind, they're the best ones. They're the most solid, and they don't have anywhere to go but up, you know. And like some of them that start the best, they only have one way to go, and that's, you know,
that's down. Oh,
so,
yeah.
And I try to keep some bulls around that kind of fit all of them, but the problem with that is you never know when they're going to come and all that business. So I used to really try to concentrate on keeping some beginner bulls here, but then I'd feed them for 6 months and I wouldn't get one beginner bull rider show up. So that'd be the only reason I'd keep them around. And then
do they, in that case, do they like pay for some time to ride your bulls to practice?
I wish, yeah.
Yeah, you wish. That's what I want.
That's the way it was when I grew up. I used to have to pay $5 to get on.
You can definitely tell you've thought the whole process out for a long time. That's why you know it. You're like I told you, you're the bull whisperer.
Oh, I tell you what I am. I'm a sore loser. After you go and you get your butt kicked enough, and you come home and you think about what you can do better, you know.
Yeah.
Or watch and see what someone else had done better that was beating you, you know. So.
Yeah. I think that's what we all do.
Yeah.
You know.
I drove by a wheat field one day and seen a calf walking around out grazing on his knees. And I called my foreman and I said, "What's wrong with this bull?" Well, wasn't something wrong with him out here. Anyway, I explained to him what bull it was. Oh, he said, "He's just that way." He said, "He always eats on his knees." He said, "Have you ever looked at his feet?" And I said, "Well, no." He told me, he said, "His feet's long." So I go out and look. Sure enough, his feet grew way down. They're long. They didn't grow out and tuck up. They just grew long. Well, come to find out, he was so straight-fronted that he couldn't walk on his feet, so he didn't wear them off. Well, this happened to be a bull we call Long John. I was actually going to put him down. I didn't think he would be any count. Well, my son, he wouldn't let me do that. He bucked him not long after that, and he really bucked even though he couldn't hardly walk. Through about a year period with him working on his feet, trimming, and then finally he just takes the sawzall and cuts them off. And cuts about, I don't know, about 4 or 5 inches of his feet plumb off. And then he trims him and shapes him back up. Of course, you know we've got a bloody mess and it don't look like it would be right. But anyway, it worked. He always gave us a little trouble with his feet. We always trimmed him and kept him shaped up. But he come from being a cripple that should have been put down to being a world champion. To me, I mean, you know, we always brag on Bruiser and we talk about Bruiser because he's so great, but really from coming from something that can't hardly get around and being a world champion, Long John was probably the bull.
Long John was the #1 bucking bull of the year before Bruiser. He's not with us anymore. So Dillon sent me a picture of him and I knew that I just needed to paint him because I felt that this bull was in his heart. And so I knew that I wanted to, so they sent me some photographs of him. This is a real dark background and it makes him pop out. But again, we have the same colorations that we do kind of with Bruiser. Long John has a lot of those same characteristics of colors. I felt like you have a lot of emotion in his eye. You can really see kind of his personality in the eye of this bull here. So again, I start a lot of times with the eye, make sure I get the eye really where I want it to be, and then I can kind of paint out from there. So I'll just show you a little bit about how I do it. What I do is I start out and I put this thicker medium out here. I'm just going to paint a little spot. I've already kind of blocked that in and done it, but I studied one artist and he said he calls this oiling in. So what that does, it starts creating a little bit of a slick surface so that when I start painting paint into that, it glides into it like the painting is fresh underneath it. So I've already put that over this whole painting. So what I do after that is I'm just going to take that spot that I showed you and I thin that out just a little bit. And it just leaves just enough on the surface to give it that fresh look. So I'm going to use some of this medium and I'm going to get some white. If I was to gray that back just a little bit back there, it makes that horn pop out more because basically in the photo, it was grayed back more. So you can see why this painting is not quite finished yet because these are the kind of things that I have to adjust. I shoot for a close color to begin with, a close value, and then I tint it. And that's called glazing. If you saw the real photo, it's a little more brown in his neck here. So what I'll do is I'll take some of this medium and I'll mix me up a color that is really what it was in the photo. I kind of have to kind of play with it. A lot of times I'll touch it on there and see a spot and see, does that match the color that I'm looking for? And then it's kind of transparent, so you're seeing the colors underneath. So I'll go ahead and glaze that in. And since I've coated it with this already and just wiped a little bit of it off, the paint just glazes right over and glides and it changes the complexion in a hurry, or it can just do it very subtly. So I hope this helps. I hope this helps artists. It's something that has really helped me in painting and sped up my process to where I can paint every day right back into the same painting, be able to keep working on it till I get it to the point where I'm just really, really happy with it. This is how I speed up my process, and this is just what I've adapted to. We're here today at D&H Cattle Company, and of course we ran across a real famous cowboy here, Cord McCoy.
Oh, what an honor to be here. You know, it's bull riding is a very grounding sport, you could say. But you know, you come over here, you know, one day during the week, just like tonight. You know, we're here on a Tuesday night. Some of the best bulls, up and coming bulls and bull riders, you know, are training right here, and you know, it's pretty neat to be here at this location. You got Bruiser back there, two-time world champion bucking bull. There's so many champions have come through here. They're going into blowing right now, and I think when you've got bulls like, you know, Bruiser and the rest of them standing back there, it definitely puts Dixon, Oklahoma on the map. These guys have raised and trained and produced some of the best bulls for so long. If you want to, compare your program to someone, everybody looks to D&H Cattle Company.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you here tonight. I tell you what.
Yeah, we're just getting warmed up. Them guys. That's a good thing about bucking bulls is they don't know when you're practicing or when you're bucking for $1 million. So they're always serious. I think other sports they got a whistle or they got something to stop the play or redo a practice. Well, the bulls are full blast all the time.
Game's on all the time, isn't it?
Yeah. So they could sell you a ticket for $100 or give it to you for free, but the bulls will give you the same show.
That's right. It was really great to meet Dillon and HD from the D&H Cattle Company, where we got to meet Bruiser, the #1 bucking bull of the year. Join me next time for another cowboy adventure. I'm Steve Boaldin.